I'm live.
Music has benefits, I'm not your ordinary. It don't matter, let the world know. It don't matter, be your own kind of beautiful. Curvy is so beautiful, plus size is so. If you're plus size, it don't matter. If you got curves, it don't matter. Maybe a little thick, it don't matter. Be your own kind of beautiful. Keep your head up, it don't matter. Don't be discouraged, it don't matter. Let the world know it don't matter. Be your own kind of beautiful. Curvy is so beautiful, plus size is so wonderful. Music has benefits, I'm not your ordinary chick. I've got a lot of love to share with little short and nappy hair. Take your time to let you know I'm my own kind of beautiful. Think it's a sexy girl, don't you be ashamed. No, 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 yeah. Be your own kind of beautiful. You're so beautiful.
All right, we're ready to go on. Let me go back and bring you guys back in.
I'm already in.
I know, but the audience can't see you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Jamila J Girl Talk. We're here with my co-host, Lele. How you doing?
Listen, the one and only. Today is the day.
What's today, Lele?
The day is the Sunday the 9th, but we have somebody coming on.
Who's
Listen,
coming on? Who's coming on?
It is a surprise. If
All right.
anybody's on, what they need to do today, they need to get in contact and tell them to tune in.
Tune in. Who we got coming on today, Lay? You excited? You making me excited.
I'm definitely excited. Not this that I work with him. I know him personally.
Oh, personally.
Yes.
But you know what?
We also went together to Egypt together.
Wow, that is personal. But Lay, why I'm excited is because, we talk religion, we talk politics, we talk current events. So it's good to be well-rounded and talk about all subjects, but to have somebody here somewhere, we can't see you, to have somebody here that has a clear perspective on politics. A lot of people don't want to vote. We're coming up to the November elections, November 4th, and it's important to talk about all subjects. And I think you have a person here you're going to introduce that knows that up close and personal. So you want to go ahead and introduce our special guest?
For all our audience, for all our fans, I want to introduce the one and only. It's different between politicians and public servants. Okay. I'm not going to call him a politician. I'm going to call him a public service because he's a service to the people.
Yeah.
And his name is Eric Stevenson, the former assemblyman of the 79th district in the Bronx.
Hey! Woo! Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
And I could possess that he's one of the people that come from where we come from.
Yeah. But sometimes people come from where we come from, and then they forget where they come from, So I think this is going to be a great conversation. Welcome to our show. Thank you for taking your time today to have a conversation with us. Should I call you Assemblyman Stevenson or Mr. Stevenson? How should I address you?
Could call me Eric.
Oh, thank you, Eric. So you are down to earth.
Yeah.
All right. So, Eric, can you tell us?
Titles, you know, sisters, we who make the titles, you know?
Okay. So, can you tell us where you were born and where do you live at right now?
I was born, raised, and currently still live where I was born in the Bronx.
In the Bronx. Okay. All right. So, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Lay like to rush it, but I like to get a little details, a little bit about your childhood growing up in the Bronx, because I'm from California. So I don't know a lot about New York and the different boroughs. So
you're from a great state too. I worked years in California.
Okay.
So I had time out of New York as well. I used to be a political consultant in California.
Where at?
Yeah, in Los Angeles and the Bay Area. Worked for Willie Brown.
Oh, yeah, he was the governor, not the governor, but the mayor of San Francisco a long time.
And then he was the speaker of the state legislature.
Yeah.
Right.
Willie Brown is everything in California.
The man, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
I was his #1 state director for voter registration and getting out the vote in California.
Wow. That's amazing.
At a critical time of when there was some serious elections going on and propositions on the ballot. You know, California runs a lot of propositions on the ballot.
Yeah.
For environmental issues, et cetera. And this was a real critical issue dealing with people who was on welfare. I think it was the governor at the time was Pete Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that proposition where they was trying to defeat and overturn some ridiculous policy that would hurt people that was on welfare across the state. And Willie Brown raised millions of dollars to defeat it, and we defeated it.
What was that, the 70s or when was that?
No. That was in the 90s.
90s.
Yes.
Well, Willie Brown, he was mayor for a long time.
Yeah. No, he came mayor afterwards. He became mayor.
Yeah.
Is he still alive?
I was going to ask you that. I don't know. I remember him as being I remember seeing him one time, and he was a little elderly man back in, I thought it was the 70s.
But he's a very wise and powerful man. You know?
Was he the vice president mentor?
He might have mentored the vice president and the presidents. He was a very wise man and powerful man.
Oh, yeah, I think he was Kamala Harris's probably mentor.
Oh,
yeah.
If she came, without a doubt, you know.
Yeah, because So how did you get into politics?
I got into politics through my grandfather. I was born into politics.
Oh, okay.
My grandfather was Edward Stevenson Sr. He was the first Caribbean-born elected official in the state of New York back in the 60s. And he went through so many years, and so many years has passed by, and people never even know that he was the first Caribbean born. He wasn't born in America. He was born in Jamaica.
Wow. Wow.
He came and he retired from the Department of Corrections because he was such a popular person or well-known person in his community from being active and helping people with so many different day-to-day living problems, poverty, jobs, etc. He was like the person that they needed that was known amongst the community who could be elected and get elected, and he went and he did it, and
Wow.
he not only did he serve in a historical position as being the first Caribbean-born American elected, but also pertaining to the Attica riots. For those who know about the Attica riots and know the history of the Attica riots that took place in New York, that cost the life of 13 prison guards. You know, I know first on it because I was taught it by him. I have the literature that it was given to him and written, the correspondence with him and the governor. I have all of the original letters and stuff that went back and forth in negotiating, trying to prevent the Attica riots.
Wow. This is history, you know, Lay and I, we love history, especially our history. Can you tell us, give us some background on that riot during that time? Because a lot of the young people may not know about it.
Yeah, and it's something that they need to know. That's why history, a good thing you and Lay are history people, and the good thing that you do what you do about history, because history, they said if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going. You know, like when you just talking about, Lady was talking about, well, he's like us or down to roots, or he knows where he comes from or doesn't forget where you come from. If you don't know where you come from, you don't know who you are.
You don't.
You know,
absolutely.
So the bottom line is the Attica riots went on at the time in the 60s, Attica State Prison, New York. It's a big, I get many books about it. They even did a movie about it. Governor Rockefeller was the governor at the time.
Okay.
And what happened was they wrote my grandfather, the inmates wrote my grandfather some letters, several letters about abuse and mistreatment, etc., that was going on there, because he was on the correction committee at the time. So that's why they wrote to him. And he was the only black on the correction committee. So they figured whites at that time in the 60s were really like anti-inmates, anti-people, anti-black, et cetera, et cetera. So they said, well, we'll get a chance. Let's try to write this black man. So him doing his job, he answered the call. He didn't take any sides up front, but he was called to investigate something that he said was disturbing to him. So what he did was he scheduled to go to Attica prison. So they scheduled to meet with the warden, and he asked for a tour of the prison. And he said he has these complaints, and he would like to be able to visit the inmates who made these complaints. So being in his authority and the powers that the legislators have, they have to give you the right to it. So they took him to the cell block. I mean, I have the pictures. I mean, if you want, I even have the book here. I can even show you the pictures if you want to see some of them.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So let me just give me a second. I'll get it for you.
Okay. All right. So this is history, Lay, you know?
Oh, definitely. And you know what? I didn't even know about that. But I'm gonna tell you, listen, like I said, I know him personally. We hang out together.
Okay.
You know, for him to be, for a person in that position to be assemblyman, they got the pictures right there.
Okay, this is the picture of him. This was a journal that was done for him.
Move it to this way. Yeah.
Robert Kennedy.
Wow. That's your grandfather?
Yes.
Okay.
Him and Kennedy became very good friends, believe it or not. Very close friends. And Kennedy did a lot of things for him, wrote a lot of things, created a statue in his image and gave it to him. And he was also frequent visitor as a Kennedy estate in road right now, out there in Cape Cod area. So they would always invite him to their vacation home. He became friends with President Kennedy because of the tradition of what he stood for. Yeah. So I'm just gonna show you the pictures of Attica.
Okay. So this inspired you to become a politician.
We're gonna go into that.
Yeah, I mean that's your legacy. That's in your DNA.
Yeah, we're gonna go into that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We're gonna get down to it. I might need this hour now. That lady got me started.
See? Lay always running here and there, everywhere.
Okay. Here's something here now.
Okay.
This here says, if you can see this, can you read what that says?
Right there. Hold it up a little bit. Like, can you read it?
No, I can't see it.
Okay.
It says, this is an article in the local newspaper at the time of 1967. It says, Assemblyman visits Muslims and assails Attica Jim Crow. And then it says another article, all white Attica staff is the target of the Assemblyman. And then it says Bronx Assemblyman will visit Muslims in prisons. Wow. Okay, now I'm going to tell you why and for what reason. And here he is on the cell block of Attica. If you notice him there, you have the prison guards there. He's talking to the white prison guards. If you look how they look, if you look at their body language, how they're standing, and behind them, you can see the correction commissioner and others talking to inmates through the bars.
Wow, what a legacy.
Because they were some of the ones who made the complaint. And they were probably telling him, nigga, you better not say nothing until or you know what's going to happen when the Assemblyman leaves, you know?
Wow.
So, anyway, they wasn't going for that. So that's the photos. And I hate to use the language, but I'm just telling you the mindset of what they think and how they spoke.
Wow.
Anyway, so first of all, when he was interviewing and speaking to the guards in Attica, he said, well, first of all, I'm getting complaints from black inmates about racism and so on. Secondly, there was a group of them were Muslims who were making the complaint because they had their religious rights there. And what the white guards would do they would go take urine and put it in a bucket. And after they prayed, they would throw a bucket of urine inside the masjid where they prayed at. So they couldn't, when they go in there, the room smells like urine and urine's all over the floor, so they can't pray in urine. So it was a highly disrespect. And they wasn't allowed to receive the Muhammad Speak newspaper. They couldn't even so their religious rights were being violated. So what happened was, when they called my grandfather, he came in, and the first thing he addressed was this. And so he talked to the Muslims about it, and then he talked to the prison guards, and he says, first of all, one thing he made a recommendation to the governor is one problem I'm going to tell you that he sees is that there's no black staff at Attica State Prison. Not one black person worked there.
Wow.
Secondly, he interviewed several inmates, and he recommended to the governor, he says, listen, I have a good assessment of dealing with people, and I spoke with people, and I'm going to tell you one thing for sure. I've interviewed several inmates who promised me one thing and told me that they willing and ready to give their life right now if this doesn't change. And he said he believes 100% within his heart that they're dead serious about it. So the governor, he made the recommendation to the governor, which I have the letter and I have the response from the governor. But see, the governor's response was kind of like, who do you think you are telling me what to do? Or who do you think you are telling us that we need correction? He said, well, he's an assemblyman, and that's his job. But because of the arrogance of racism and they thinking they're white and superior, and he's some small black man from Bronx coming and say, hey, governor, you're wrong, or you need to address this, the governor shot him down. Like, don't talk.
Here we go. All right. Here we're having this only happens on Sundays, right? Technical difficulties. I'm gonna let them back in. There you go. Yeah.
That's what happened. So he thought he thought that my grandfather was trying to be arrogant and call him out and show him wrong. So he just says, listen, Governor, all I'm recommending to you is to make a correction, and here's what I find wrong, and here's what I think needs to be corrected. So they blew him off, right? So now these same inmates who he said that they were serious and willing to give their life, they gave their life.
Those are the 13 that died?
Huh? Yeah, they gave their life. They said they was going to give their life. But not only did they give their life, they killed 13 prison guards. And it was the biggest crisis, disaster that existed in the history of New York. So what happened after this, the governor sent in sharpshooters and the state police, and they went in and they just like, the way they ran into there, so many people got caught in there, and if they didn't die, many was put in critical condition, and they was going back and forth. It was a war in the prison, and they took guards hostage, and if they didn't do what they wanted, they would just slice the guard throat. They would kill them.
What year was this? What year was this?
1967.
Wow.
So what happened was, the governor, after they resolved everything, it was a big, big, big mess on his hand. So what he realized was that my grandfather was really trying to help him and not hurt him. So he sent a letter of apology to my grandfather, because he says, here I was thinking that this black man's trying to show me out and highlight me as a wrongdoer, but he was really trying to help me.
Yeah.
Because
he was trying to save lives.
He said, if you make these adjustments, I'm telling you how to prevent a crisis. But they didn't want to listen. So afterwards, he realized that, and he says, he called my grandfather over to the governor's mansion, and he talked to him. He apologized in a letter, and he told him from now on, like, whatever, long as he's serving in this state, inside this Albany, whatever he needs, as long as I'm a governor, he could get it.
Wow.
So if he need money for housing in this community, whatever he needed, if he called the governor, he told the governor whatever the man asked and needs, just to do it. Because he realized that he was actually, like I say, an ally and not an enemy. So he became friends with Governor Rockefeller.
Wow.
So now when Dr. King died and was assassinated, Rockefeller invited him to fly on his personal jet with him to King's funeral. So they had a good relationship. They became friends, and even like the Rockefeller family and my family were, even back in those days, up to some period of time till we lost connection, were friends, as well as the Kennedys.
Wow.
So that's what happened there. And the governor to hire black prison guards. He said this would be a start. So they opened a competitive civil service list, and they immediately hired black prison guards in the state prisons of New York. That's how black men got to get a job in the state prisons of New York State. It came from this. Secondly, right away, the Muslims was allowed to have Muhammad speak newspapers. Third, they was allowed to pray without any hesitation, without any interference, and they had prison monitors overseeing and making sure that no guards went and violated religious rights of people again. So this is how the religious rights were established for Muslims in the state prisons of New York. Yes, it cost people their lives, but many things cause people have to give their life before something could happen. And that's like slavery. How many people had to die before we was even recognized to do certain things? And even though we still haven't gotten a just due. But I'm just saying, death sometimes is what it takes to have something established. But we was trying to avoid having people's lives taken. But unreasonable people have unreasonable behavior, and we get unreasonable results.
See, I think because of what happened at Attica, that a lot of things been intimate under the Constitution. For like your First Amendment.
Oh yeah, it was a big violation. It was this. First of all,
then under the Fifth and Sixth Amendment, due process, access to the law library. Under the Eighth Amendment, unusable punishment. That goes to when the brothers was praying and they had feces and stuff in there. That's a violation of the Eighth Amendment.
Wow.
Well, those things happened, and that was the reality of that.
Yeah, I think they said that.
And but the changes were made thanks to the governor finally saying, okay, what do we need to do after the fact? You know, it was a crisis on the head. It was a mess on his hand. And he lived to be scrutinized for a long time behind allowing that to happen.
Yeah. So, wow. Your grandfather really made history.
Oh, yeah,
you know,
it's a
fact. That's a tough legacy to follow.
Yeah, because we're living in two different time periods. You know, back then it was even tougher because you talk about the 60s in New York. You know, when you're talking about institutional racism, it was at its heights there. It still exists, but it was outright there. You see, it was like blatant in your face, like no black employees work here, not even as a janitor.
Yeah.
You know? Wow. So they had to crack the racism of state employment first by putting out competitive lists and making sure minorities were hired. And that's what was done immediately. The governor promised it. He did it. And he did other things that was necessary. And then the good thing about it is my grandfather, when he passed his legislation, the governor never gave opposition, signed all of his bills without opposition.
Wow. Wow.
You know, usually a governor, if he disagrees, he rejects your bill.
Veto, yeah.
And on top of it, he was Republican. So the Democrats and Republicans automatically, Democrat, they get nothing, you know. But grandfather, everything that came to the governor's table, he signed into law.
Wow. How do you live up to a legacy like that? How did you find your own way in politics?
Like I said, I was born into it. I lived in a household with my grandfather, so I had to hear all these stories. I had to be told all these things, and I had to be, you know, like advised and told how to be, how to live. Don't forget yourself. Make sure you know who you are, and all of these things, you know. And just like any other families, or like the Queen of England, how they have a system of kingship where it's passed on to Queen or King. You know, my grandfather and father served so much. It's like we had a lot of brothers. My father had 8 children, and it's like, well, who's going to follow politics? And even though my other brothers engaged in it, they didn't like it, and they didn't want to be involved in politics because they don't like politics. They're just like, no, it's too phony to us. It's too this. And to an extent, I agree with them. But I said change has to be done by individuals who believe and want change. They have to become that change. You can't become that change unless you go in and be the change. You know, so it just looked like it's a reason why my grandfather always took, when he retired, he would always go to Harlem, and he would always take me out of all of my brothers with him. You know, and he would always take me to the spots in Harlem where they would sit him at the restaurant when he was an assemblyman, and they knew him, and give him his back table, treat him, and he would always be like, it's my grandson, you know, and so on. So I'm wondering, like, okay. So all my brother, like, he always takes you. Always, why? And I never asked to go with him, you know?
Wow.
So he would always but then I realized one thing is, like, you know, our elders, sometimes many of our elders had a spiritual connection and insight to life, and knew what they was doing and knew what they were seeing. So what they was really doing was passing the crown to me.
But were you the youngest or oldest out of all your brothers?
I was the third.
Oh, okay. Kind of like the middle child.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But they all talked to me about politics. They all took me around politics. They all engaged me in politics. So they all had their eye on me. Why? I never asked them, but all of our brothers, they watched and know who and each of our personalities, so they knew what they were going to do and who they saw fitting to say, well, somebody has to carry on the legend.
And
not for the sake of being a legend, but for the sake of justice and community service.
Did you go to college for study political science or law or anything?
No, I studied electrical engineering.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't go for politics. But like I said, all of my politics was hands-on. I mean, the way I was given politics was like a person could go to politics 101 in college, right? And study politics, but you got the book work. But if you come out here into the street, you have no sense of how to apply it without knowing. So I went right to the book. I mean, right to the hands-on, you know, which was good because even till today, it helps me because I still do consulting off it, and I still can't get away from it as much as I want to get away from it because I'm always called to action.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit about your former district, the constituents, and the people that you served?
Well, my district, it was considered to be one of the top 5 poorest congressional districts of America. You know, I served a district, what was known back in the 60s as Black Mecca. You know, we had many famous Black people who came out that district. I'm talking about lawyers, judges, district attorneys, Supreme Court justices, mayor, you name it, it came from there.
Wait a minute, you said it was hold, I want to make sure I heard this right. You said it was the 5 poorest districts?
One of the top 5 poorest congressional districts of America.
And so you had all these famous
who
people,
came out of it.
judges, doctors, lawyers come out of the poorest district?
Yeah, because poverty wasn't the answer. Poverty was kind of a solution to mean that you got to do something better if you want to come out of it. You know? So you can't stay in poverty by being impoverished. You're going to have to do something for change. You know, and education is a power tool to take you out of poverty. Because it raises your income level. It gives you more knowledge. It opens up your mind to think better, to see what life is all about and how to function and deal with life. Teaches you about business, etc. Then you start to know that, okay, well, this is it. So from one person to another, they started getting the picture. And at that time, you was able to go to college practically free.
So poverty was the motivating factor,
right?
So that people can get out of that condition into something better.
Yes, suffering, not having proper meals, not having enough clothes, not living in a decent home, not being able to say, "Wow, I watch commercials on TV about a vacation and can't even take one," you know, etc. So
look at Colin Powell.
Yeah, and Colin Powell comes from my district, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, he went to high school there, and I've met him before too. Yes.
What do you think about reparations? I know I'm just throwing things out because I know you guys got to go.
Reparations.
But I want you to speak on reparations.
Reparations is a must.
Yeah.
Reparations is a fact. Reparations is the bill that's owed. You know, they did it to the Native Americans with the treaties. They double-crossed them and never delivered to the Native Americans. And they did it to us with the 40 acres and the mule. You know, we never got it.
Never got it.
Had we got it, would we be in poverty today? No. Land is worth a lot of money. Real estate is the most valuable asset you can have.
Yeah.
You know, you could grow food on land. You could build housing on land. You could sell land that after the value goes up and make money off it and to do whatever. And had we had our mule to work, we would have worked our way and we would not be in the situation we are in. So it's only a fact that our own federal government has been our own enemy. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. Who was responsible to fulfill it? The federal government. Who was in charge? The people in Washington. What did they do? So when you say our government's for, of, and by us, it's of us, but not for and by us, not us.
But here in California, the Native Americans, they got reparations, and I mean, like where I live, there's 3 Native American casinos, and they're able to send their kids to college. I'm a teacher. One little girl, she went to a very expensive tutorial program funded by the the Native Americans. I know the Japanese, they got reparations. Everybody has received reparations, but for us, it's not necessary. Oh, we got affirmative action. Oh, get over it. Move on with your life. And if you put a dollar number to what they owe us, what would you say? Millions, trillions?
From the time of the ending of slavery to this point now with interest, it would be way into the millions.
Millions.
You know,
and another. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Way into the millions. So this is what America's problem is now. There's 2 things I could advise you to research. One is called it's a DVD if you could get it. It was off the market for a while, but it came back on. It's called The Canary Effect.
Okay.
It's about Native Americans and the treaties, and it was a congressman from Hawaii who was Native who actually talked about this and talked about to make sure that these treaties were fulfilled to the natives, and it's a must-have. Canary Effect to watch that documentary.
Okay. Is it on YouTube?
Excuse me? I don't know if
it's on YouTube.
I don't know if it's on YouTube, but I bought it in DVD. I had to wait years to get it because it was off the market. And when it came back on, I was on a waiting list and I had got it. It's a must watch on The Canary Effect. And the other one was oh boy, just slipped my mind now. For the Canary Effect, and I forgot the other one now.
But who do you think should receive reparations in terms of the descendants of slaves? I was watching the news here, I think it was last week, and they were saying, well, we don't even know who to give the reparations to. But to me, that was a very simple question. So I'm just going to ask you, who do you think should receive reparations?
I think anyone who could prove that they have a lineage, to prove that they had family that stems back to Africa, which is all of us. You know, all of our families went through slave trade. I have my history and know which one of my family. I know my family members' names who were slaves because we did a family tree and it stems back to it. I know where they landed. I know where they stayed. I know who they married because we did an extensive family tree. You know, mines go back into Virginia, and many of my family members, when they were slaves, they were escaped and went amongst the Native Americans where they allowed them refuge there, and many of them married into Native Americans. That's why a lot of my aunts and stuff were on my father's side looked like Indians. They were like the natives. That's from the mixing of the seeds from the slaves and the Native Americans. So the natives were not our enemies.
No,
you know,
no.
they had a lot of things in common with us, you know. And even before Christopher Columbus came to America, not discovered, before he came here, you know, the natives was already working and doing trade with the Africans.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they were already coming here back in the 12th and 13th century, way before Christopher Columbus knew his name.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
You know, the writings, they got to prove that the slaves were the one who navigated Christopher Columbus to the Americas.
See, and not only that, what I have found out doing a lot of research, who the United States were fighting over here that was Native Americans were Black Indians. Geronimo was a Black Indian. Now, if you go back into the Mali Empire, before Mansa Musa became the king over there, his king is the one that left over there with ships the size of 2 football fields, and he had 10 of them. And they came over here and never went back.
Yeah, so they've been going back and forth to the Americas, what they know as the Americas, way before they said that they discovered it. And I saw a writing that Christopher Columbus had wrote. They had found a letter that Christopher Columbus had wrote to the king of, I don't know if it was England or Italy. I think it was Italy. That after he came to America, he had wrote a letter back to the king of Italy and said he has found this land that's very ripe for the take. It's very ripe for the take. He said what he found there were very naive people who were able to be taken and who was very fitting and easily to be able to convert into Christianity. And it was a letter. Go online and research it. It's there. It was in the newspaper. They had found the letter, the original letter, and it's in one of the museums. And that's what he stated. They're right for the taking, etc. And not only that, he's talked about enslaving them.
Wow.
And they were right for the taking for enslavement and easy fitting to be brought into Christianity. So, you know,
everything we've learned in history is a lie.
Well,
everything we've learned, everything I teach is a lie. I'm so grateful for this show we do, every Sunday. We don't talk about history all the time, but just these moments that we do have means a lot to me. And I hope people get it,
History is only his story.
Yes, it's not our story.
It's not history for us. It's his story of us. And he's never going to give us the correct, true knowledge of ourselves and our history because what they did to us, and how they damaged the kingdoms of Africa and what they did on Africa. That book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Rodney Campbell, Rodney Campbell explains the whole situation. And with so much, Africa wasn't impoverished and like it is today, and so on. Like a lady talk about Mansa Musa, he was the richest man in the world.
Africa's been raped.
Yeah,
it's been raped.
But they were taken out of light and pulled into darkness. But other people benefited and left them impoverished and in poverty.
Don't you know what they did to Africa now? Every European country have a base in Africa. So that means that they're in a position to not let Africa never come out of the condition they're in right now.
Yeah.
And they there permanently to keep raping Africa.
Yeah.
So, Miss Jamila, as we move forward and we know what it is, um, you know, life is a battle once you conscious, you know,
Yeah, yeah, it is.
because now your eyes are open to truth, and the false things that exist around you, you come in a fight against, versus not knowing and just blindly walking on.
Right, right.
So the problem with that is now trying to wake up our own people. Many of us been in such sleep mode, sleeping giant mode for so long that we try to wake our own people up. Many of them become our main people who come against us, main people who criticize us, main people who attack us and say, "Oh, you're a troublemaker, you're this, you're that." But because I want my natural right back, because I want to be me, live me, who God created me as.
Right.
I have to fight for my identity back.
Yeah.
And those who feel that way, let them die. Let them go to their own grave with that in their mind, but not me. Because if you wish, if you're satisfied and content with being rocked with what you have, that's okay, and that's your choice of life. But it's not mine.
What was the most challenging thing being an assemblyman?
There were several challenging things, one of them
it's 16 hours.
One of them was the gay marriage bill. They tried to take it out of context, et cetera, et cetera. I had nothing against a person's preference. Your life is your life. God gives you your choice of life, right? So your choice is your choice. I had the bill. We had to vote on the bill, and all Republicans voted against it. And I think I was one of the only one or two Democrats who voted against it. But I voted against it with a reason. Reason was not to speak against people who are gay. I have gay.
Sorry.
I have a cousin who's gay in my family. We've never treated him different than who he is. He's our family, he's a cousin. But what he does when he goes, wherever he goes, that's him. But his family, it's family. Are we gonna not invite him to dinner? If he wants to come, he's invited. I mean, he's still a family. But we don't do anything different. But my thing was this: I was a representative of a community, and I had about 3,000 letters sent to me from the community came up stating that we want to preserve traditional marriage. So they wanted me to vote no on the bill, right? So I said, listen, I'm challenged with my career now, because either I'm gonna support this, or 3,000 people already signed letters who's gonna vote against me, right? But I don't let that be the factor of controlling me. If I gotta go, I go.
Right.
I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna stand on my platform, belief and grounds. If I gotta go, I have to go. I was not always there anyway.
Right.
I'm not gonna leave out cowardly, and I'm not gonna leave out different than what I was taught to believe and stand on, and my faith. And I'm not gonna compromise it. If it got to give up the office, hey, I was in office, and I'm not there now, right? But the fact was this: I went to a lot of schools in that district, in my community, and I spoke, and a lot of the young people respected me in my district. And for me to say that bill, to send that message, they would have misinterpreted the message and misunderstood the message as saying, I'm saying it's okay to be gay.
Okay.
So now I'm going to be blamed for it. And on top of it, my community says, look, Stevenson, you're a representative of us to represent our community and what we want. I'm telling you, 3,000 people say that this is what we want you to do as our representative. And I told the community, I told on the floor, I stated it, I'm not voting my own opinion. I'm voting for the community I represent, and this is what they want me to express as their representative. I said, had it be my own opinion, we would have to debate it, and we don't have the time here today to debate my opinion. And it doesn't mean that it was going to be a no or a yes, but we would have to have a debate. But people misinterpreted, took it the wrong way. Oh, he didn't want this. No, it wasn't that. They never understood my vote properly. I've helped more people in the gay community than probably their own representatives. When they come from my constituent services, you know how many people came in? Did I say, no, you can't come in because you're gay? No. Did I do the job? Yes. Else. Has I helped them get into housing? Yes. Has I helped their children when they was being persecuted and stuff when their mothers came to me? Yes. Did I stop hate crimes against them? Yes. Did I support hate crime bills against them? Yes. Because they're human beings, they're human being. So I think we want to get this thing twisted, but of course, people want to always twist it because they don't understand something. Oh, you're a hater of this, you're a hater. I never used the word hate, and my actions never represented or showed hate because I never.
So you voted against it?
Yes.
Because that's what your constituents wanted.
Yes.
Isn't that your job?
That's what
to represent your community, what they want.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And I stated, look, this is not my personal vote. This is the community's vote, who I represent. I said, if we're going to debate my personal opinion, we don't have the time here today to debate it because it's going to be here for days debating it.
Right. I think that is challenging because I know I watch politics. Yeah, I watch politics. A lot of them flip back and forth. Whatever they'll say, if you go to the gay community, they'll say, "Yeah, I love you guys. I'm gonna vote for this and that." Then you go to the other side, they don't want that vote. You tell them whatever. You tell people what they want to hear, and they're not accountable at the end of the day. You know. Exactly. Yeah. That's politics. That's why people don't like it.
But I kept it straight. You know, they wanted to I kept it straight. And all the Democrats, you know how many Democrats, my colleagues came and said, man, they was like, man, I'm going to have to, they said, how you vote before the bill came up? And I said, well, how do you think I'm going to vote? I'm voting against because I already knew and decided what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But my colleagues, they didn't want to, they said, man, I know one of my colleagues told me, they said, we don't want to vote for it, but we have to. They said, we could crucify them.
The gay community is very, very politically active, not in California for sure.
Yeah, but
I don't know about New York.
But I stated my position very clearly. I told them, I said, listen, because I'm not supporting this doesn't mean I don't support hate crimes. I don't support any wrongdoing against them. I said anybody who comes against a person because of their situation or status of wanting to be gay or whatever they orientation wants to be is fine. But I said, you know, we're not going to allow people to hurt them because of that. Just like we're not going to allow a person to hurt a person because they're black or because they're white or because they're Asian or anything else.
Right,
you know, wrong is wrong. And people have a preference. You know, I can't help if I'm born black. Asian is born an Asian. He's born a Chinese. But if I don't like him, doesn't mean I hurt him.
Right.
We have to learn tolerance, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's a matter of having the educated debate and understanding of what it really is. And I had a Jewish colleague. He stood up with the Torah in his hand. Right? I didn't even go there. I could look. And that's what I told him. I don't want to debate you because you debate me. Because if I put on what I have to debate with you, you can't win. But the Jewish guy, he stood and put the Torah in the air, and he said, listen, I tried to figure out how to understand this and resolve my vote. He said, so I read the Torah, not one, not two, not three. I read it 7 times. Okay. And I did not find a justification to vote for this because I couldn't find a justification in the Torah. Therefore, I'm voting no. Me and him was the only two who voted no. They never attacked him, never said nothing to him because the Jewish lobbies and the community are afraid of them. So they left him alone. He used the scripture. I didn't want to be phony and pull up a scripture because I could easily hold the Quran or the Bible up and say it doesn't justify it. But I told him the truth. I'm a representative. Yeah. I mean, had the community told me to go vote some hate thing, then I would have to tell the community I can't do it. Right. Because it's not a right thing. But they have a right to say that they support traditional marriage. And they didn't say they're against. They just said they want to uphold a traditional marriage system. That's all. When they told George Bush that, when they wanted to engage in the military, and he said no, when they attacked George Bush, he said, look, I know marriage as a relationship between a man and a woman. That's what my father and mother taught me, traditional marriage. He said that's what he upholds. Yeah. Now, if you're one to twist it, that's not what he was taught. And that's not what life was formed or started off of. So don't get angry. Everybody has a right to their position and stance. And it was like I was saying, I mean, you have to learn to respect one another. And that was their opinions. So my reason was for that. And had I went into my personal reason, maybe I would have still voted no too. So I don't know. But we didn't get to that debate. But I know I became the talk of the town after that.
Wow. So what are some of the perks, some of the perks and some of the good times you've had?
The perks was I got to meet a lot of good people. I got to meet a lot of leaders. I got to meet world leaders. I've got to meet state leaders, other state leaders. I got to join in national legislative organizations where we was connecting to other states with one another as legislators. I joined the National Association of Black Legislators that had yearly conventions, things like that, where we were in the acts of we would have friendships in other states with one another and be able to exchange and talk about ideas of law, etc. So it was great perks. Don't get me wrong. I would tell a person, public office is one of the most beautiful things in life, if you ask me. Okay. But I just think we need to weed out over 75% of people who's in public office. Yeah. You know, that's the problem. Yeah. We need independent thinkers, we need free thinkers, and be attacked or judged by our decisions. Right. You know, I want you to come back when you have more time, but I do have a final question. I know you and Lay got a date and y'all got somewhere to go, but you talked about your grandfather's legacy. What is your legacy? My legacy to date is I was able to take my grandfather's seat back 50 years later. You know, my legacy is that people who come out of, I was put back on the same 50 years later, I was put on the correction committee that's the same committee my grandfather was on. So what does that tell you? So I said, I mean, I have to go and finish that work. Yeah. So I I went and continued to finish that work. Today in New York State, because of my bill that I got passed, a person coming out of state prison now who needs to be able to go back into society and get a job. Once they are released and had a good prison record, they was given a certificate of good conduct at the time of release, which would allow them to get state licensing if they wanted to be a barber, etc., or go back to school, whatever. It would clear that up for them. It was like a certificate of release of disability. I instead of them having to come out, sometimes the red tape takes them 7 years. I made it so that if they had it at the day of release, they was given it so they could go into society immediately to work. You know, when it came to Obamacare, when people who didn't have health insurance, etc., all of those things, I passed a bill that made New York State Obamacare compliant 2 years earlier. So we got people who were suffering, who was needed heart surgery and stuff, who would not have lived another 2 years. But we got it passed in New York State and got it done. So I'm proud of my record, you know, of what I've done. And there's many other things I co-sponsored that was great things in this state. And the list goes on. And it's not over. And that's not talking about my constituent service legacies. I've done things that is unheard of when it came to constituent services, about people who were put out the house and stuff, and how I got them placed back, organizations I saved, fights that I put up when it came to police brutality and to clear it up. So many different things, you know, when they shot a little 4-year-old boy in my community in the head with a 45 caliber and blew his head off, and his mother comes out to see her son's brains blown off.
Oh my God.
We made sure that I gave him 7 days. Whoever in this community needs to give it up, turn in. I said, I give them 7 days and they'll be apprehended. And they came forth out of their wrong and gave it up, you know, because I said, it's not accepted. Not accepted. Nobody wanted to stand up to the bad guys, but I said, well, guess what? It's going to cause whatever it's going to cause, but I'm not accepting it. You know, and the community was so happy for me, because so many elders said, we happy that you did this, because we was even afraid to come out our own homes. But they know when I was there, they didn't have that fear. The bad guys knew who I was too. And even they had the fear of me, because they said, hey, no, I'm not going to take it. And I'm not going to accept it.
Wow.
You know, and that's how it is. Sometimes you have to be bold, but when your conviction within yourself is to really fight for what you believe is really right, God gives you the strength and removes that fear for you to act. You know, I did stuff where people say, well, this is like fearless. And I would say, yeah, but you know what? God removed it out my heart, because it was that level of justice that was needed for right. So the legacy goes on, and it's so many more, but we're going to have to talk at other times.
We got to get them on again.
So many,
for sure.
You know, so many more things. I'll just tell you one more thing quickly. When I first came to New York State Assembly, I was in the conference with my party, and the speaker came. He said, we have good news and we have bad news. So he says, the good news is we're going to do A, B, C, D. The bad news is we're going to have to cut summer youth employment in New York State. So you're familiar with summer youth employment, correct? It's the government-funded summer youth job.
I was a summer youth.
Okay. For your low income, right? So told me that. I was silent, but I was thinking, like, wait a minute, this is not going to be good. And I said, you know, all people, Bronx, these kids, you would have put them in harm's way. What do you do? So the counsel, the attorney came over to me. She whispered in my ear. She says, Mr. Stevenson, she said, you're going to have to stand up on this one. And I said, why are you saying, tell me? She said, because no one else in here is going to go get the speaker, because they got too many favors and they too much tangled in with them, and they're not going to oppose them. So I said, well, I was going to oppose anyway. So I raised my hand, and the speaker called me and said, yes, sir. I said, I told him who I was. And, yeah, thank you. Welcome coming in. And where I represent. I said, Mr. Speaker, with all due respect, I'm not going to be able to support and vote on this budget if summer youth employment is cut. And I told him the reasons why. I said, I know you talked here today about a lot of issues that's going to benefit the rich. I said, but we have an obligation to the rich like we have an obligation to the poor. And I'm going to speak on the obligation to the poor that we have a responsibility of. And I will not cast one vote on the floor for that budget if this is cut. So recess. He come back the next day, conference. He said, we have good news, we have bad news. He said one of the good news now is that we restored the funding back for summer youth employment. So I felt really good that I saved jobs for how many millions of youth of the state of New York by up. And
you saved their lives too. You probably saved a lot of lives because they didn't have anything else to do.
Standing up and being heard and standing up on right. They couldn't refuse the argument after I explained it, because I'm like, everything you said is give cuts to this, do this for businesses, but what are we doing for the poor?
Yeah.
Are we going to make this a lopsided government? Are we going to make this a one-sided government? Or are we going to be a government for, of, and by the people? Tell me what we are here.
Yeah.
So, but one thing, I could walk down the street and have my respect from wherever I go. People urge me to run back, to go back. Please, people. I mean, they'll never forget me for my service and work. And I mean, from the clergy to the people on the street corner to whatever. You know, I remember one time, and I'll close with this. Metro North, the kind of like Metro North train, not the New York City subway, but the more modern.
Only on Sundays.
What happened?
He just went off. I guess technical difficulties. There you go. Okay.
They was putting a rail through my district and reopening a Metro North station in my community. So they needed a state approval from the state rep of that district to support the plan. So I had no problem with it because it benefits our community, because we have a faster train to get downtown quicker and take care of business, etc., for those who want to pay for it. So I said, yeah, but I don't mind it, and I'm supportive, but I have one problem, is that, you know, I don't see any minorities being hired in the Metro North. And here you are asking me as a minority legislator to support a plan, and I have issues with Metro North. So they said, well, I tell you what, we have a recruitment drive going on to hire people. These are good paying jobs. They send you to Atlanta, Georgia, 6 weeks, housing, food, everything, room and board. They train you, they certify you, and they make you track workers starting at $27 an hour. This was years ago, which was a great salary, and you work your way up. So they said, bet, here it is. You give us a list of people, and they'll pass the test, we'll put them to work. So I went back to the street corner, 169th Street, Washington Avenue, where I knew kids were there selling drugs, right? So I went in the night when I knew they out there. And I said, and they knew me, and they said, hi, how are you, Mr. Stevenson? Hey, what's going on, Stevenson? I said, your guys are still out here? And they said, yeah, why you don't give us a job? And that's what I wanted them to say. And I said, I tell you what, whoever you is on this corner is serious about a job, be at my office Monday morning at 9 o'clock if you're serious. So I know whoever shows up is serious. And whoever's not, I'm not going to waste my time. Guess what? 6 people showed up. And you know what happened? Those 6 people today are homeowners, have families, and married, and don't sell drugs anymore in our community.
Yeah. Wow.
When it comes to politics, don't overlook politics. Just overlook who's in politics.
Yeah. I want you to come back, I guess around November 4th before we vote, so we can talk about voting and the importance of voting and things like that. But yeah, I want you to come back.
I thought I was going to be on 20 minutes. You get me started, it's going to be a couple of hours. So.
See, I got you.
And by the way, Jamila,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You have a beautiful name, Jamila.
Thank you. You know what it means, right?
Yes, that's why I say you have a beautiful name.
Yeah.
And my daughter's named Jamila.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you know what it means. Lay, I'm sorry. I'm just fascinated with this man. I know I just asked him questions after question, but we're going to close out. Do you have anything that you want to say, Lay?
Listen, this is what I want to say. The brother have a lot of knowledge.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just like when I used to go to to college, and I knew the professor had a lot of knowledge. This is why I always go early, so I will absorb the knowledge from him. And I'm putting Eric in the professor position.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know he had knowledge if we don't get him to sit down.
Yeah, yeah.
Once we get him to sit down, his responsibility is to lighten the people. And we have to get him back.
Absolutely. I'm gonna confirm the first Sunday of November with Lay, and I want you to come back.
Yeah.
If your schedule allows.
Sure, I'll make sure it allows it. God willing.
Right. I thank you for your time and coming today. I appreciate it. It was more than I really expected. I thought we were going to talk normal politics or rock the vote, but you really are into prison reform and just really helping.
Well, that's just part of it, because it's a grave injustice. It's only part of it, But even for the listeners who's ever listening, look, you can make your choice of whatever choice you want to make, but know one thing, that there's a God. And there's a God of judgment.
Yeah.
You could go in your decision thinking you're right, and that's what you want to live with, but one day you're going to answer for it. I choose to take my way, even though my way costs me a lot of friendship. Some people dislike me for my position to stand. And it's not because it's wrong. It's because they just don't want to follow and admit to truth and make correction. But I said my payment in my life will be, I'm not rewarded like many of those other politicians who was given plus jobs. They left office, they was given $500,000 jobs. I don't get it. You know why? Because I didn't give up my soul.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you didn't. Yeah, you're coming back. I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad you were a politician with integrity and really living a legacy through your grandfather, and you continued his legacy. So I am very honored that you spent this time with us, and I'm definitely looking forward to having you back. And thank you so much.
Can he hear you?
He looked like he might be frozen. Lay, you have any last words before we go?
The words that I have for the day, I appreciate all our followers, and keep following us, because what's gonna happen, we are like wine. We get better in time. So that being said, I want all our followers and all our guests to have a blessed day. Always remember, pick God first.
All right, so we're gonna peace out.
Let's go.
1, 2, 3.
Peace.
Peace. I'm gonna play our close. All right, God bless y'all. We're out.